Apparently this has been the warmest February on record. We just passed through now the first week in March, and they tell us that things on this planet are very distinctly warming up. This is about the highest point on the Black Mountain in the Brecon Beacons range in the Carmarthenshire Vans, I guess you'd say. And well, it's not feeling too hot up here today, but that just shows how appearances can be deceptive. Things are actually hotting up. But it's not just the climate that's hotting up for Christians around the world today, because the political situation, the social situation is also hotting up. And last year saw a marked rise in what they call the fires of persecution, I guess, experienced by Christian people around the world. 3,000 that we know of deaths in Nigeria this year as militants attacked Christian people. Huge rise in the number of Chinese churches shut down by their government in the course of the last year. A great number of churches, there's only, I think, 4 churches left in the registered network in Algeria at the moment. And on it goes. Countries like Tunisia, the heat is also coming up. Places where people go on holiday. Egypt, again, lots of tales of the heat coming on. And even here, much lesser extent, but even here, I could very easily be in trouble with the authorities now for preaching things in a pulpit, if I were inclined to that sort of thing, that would get me in trouble with the authorities. There are laws about things that you can't say now that the Bible does. Now, over against that, in this country, we've got to say, there are other laws that we can use to bring to our defence. But the point is, you're put in trouble. And I'm not going to just spell them out just here now, because I spent about 24 hours last week in Twitter jail, would you believe, for reasons that seemed quite quirky. And I don't want to end up going off the air again, just through being reckless now. But that's the sort of situation we're in today. We've got to recognise that governments around the world are in general at the moment becoming a little bit more authoritarian, top-down control. And there's good guidance on how to deal with that as a believer in the Bible. I've been working a little bit through the book of Daniel recently, and there in the book of Daniel you find a bunch of people, satraps, administrators, governors, politicos and administrators, who see that Daniel's God is favouring him. Daniel's a captive in Babylon, being taken out of Jerusalem, temple there destroyed, taken to a strange country with strange ways and strange laws and strange patterns of worship. And he's just trying to faithfully follow God there. And after a while, the administrators, they get very jealous, and they say, well, the only way we're going to get to Daniel and bring him down and limit his power and authority, promote ourselves, is if we can get him in trouble over his God. So basically, those guys go to the king and they say, all of us are agreed, everybody who works for you, all your advisors, we're all agreed, pass a law that says for 30 days nobody must worship any god except for you. So what does Daniel do? Goes home, throws open his windows and prays towards the temple in Jerusalem to his God. But that's not just an act of defiance and rebellion. There's something else going on here. Way back in the good old days for Jerusalem and for its temple, Samuel the prophet had prayed and inaugurated the temple, and he prayed, Lord, when these people rebel against you and you take them off to a foreign land in exile because of their sin, to punish them for that and correct them again, turn them back to yourself. And when they pray towards this temple hear their prayers, restore them, heal them, and bring them back to yourself. So in this contest that had been set up by the politicos in Babylon, between their law, the law of the Medes and the Persians, which, they'd had this decree made, and the law of God, there was this point at which Daniel says, well, who am I going to obey? Because I can't obey both. And he plumps to obey his God, and he goes back to the practice of his daily routine, which was in line with the Old Testament, in line with what Samuel had done and had advised and taught in the law to be done in circumstances like these. When you're off in a place and the authorities turn against God and his ways, and it comes down to their law or your law, what to do. Well, Daniel did what the Old Testament had taught him to do. And he did it faithfully. And he was ready to take the consequences of that. And of course, there's a story about lions and a den, and a God who might not have, but did on this occasion, step in to shut the lion's mouth. And what did what did the king say at the end of that story about God and his law? That he was greater than his. And he was relieved that Daniel was rescued from the lion's mouth. So there it is. There's my word for the week. Daniel went back to his apartment and he opened his windows, and under all that pressure of the authorities against him and the law being against him and everything being against him, he prayed towards Jerusalem, to the God whose word, whose law is above all, and put his trust in him. God bless you. Have a great week.